Good morning and welcome back to Advanced English Conversation. Professor Kent Lee here. We have talked a bit about logical fallacies in advertising. We've talked about sexism, especially in advertising. And you have done a sort of a practice assignment, the recorded assignment you did in the LMS. It's sort of practice for the midterm. So I put information up on the website again about the midterm. I have not set a due date. I will try to decide on that very soon. As soon as I grade your last assignment, I'll probably set a date for the midterm and give you hopefully enough time to do it. And we're going to keep continuing having video lessons. I didn't quite get the memo from the university about the dates of the midterms, or if I did, it was kind of, it was a really insane time as I was moving and such. But I want to have my midterms later anyway, because you've been busy with your other midterms, and I don't want you to be too stressed with too many midterms at the same time, given the crazy situation this semester with online instruction and all. So your midterm will be a video you're going to upload in the LMS a little bit later, about 4 to 7 minutes, I think. It's about a good time frame, at least 4 minutes, enough to talk about your ideas. So for the midterm, again, you are going to talk about examples of fallacies or sexism or racism or something like that, discriminatory talk in advertising, in a particular area of media, or in a particular area of politics in a particular country like your own country. So you should have kind of like a main point, a main objective, or a main goal. Therefore, you can't just talk about fallacies in all of advertising. You're going to need to focus on a particular type of fallacy or discriminatory speech or a particular type of sexism or something like that in a particular area. So not just advertising in general, but maybe advertising of a particular type of product or in a particular market, or to a particular type of audience. Something like that, or in a particular area of media, a particular area of political discourse or discussion. And I'll clarify that in a minute. So you need to have a particular kind of thesis. A thesis is kind of like your main argument or objective. So the word thesis has a lot of different meanings. So for example, in academic writing, you have a thesis statement. That's like a sentence that represents the main idea, the main argument of your essay. So here, your little presentation, your midterm presentation, will have a particular a thesis, which will probably identify the particular area that you're talking about and what you're trying to tell me about it. What are you trying to make people aware of? And of course, you should talk about particular examples of that main idea. So your thesis might be that this kind of sexism in the advertising for this kind of product or market is a trend, and that has something like that. A particular main point, a particular objective. What's your main objective? What do you want to make people aware of? And so talk about several specific examples. You can build on one of the topics of your last assignment. So the assignment that you just did, your LMS assignment, where you uploaded an audio or video file talking about a couple of examples of fallacies, you can use one of those. If you talked about 2 different types of fallacies or 2 types of problematic areas, you can take one of those and use that, expand it for this assignment. In fact, that's why I had you do that assignment. This is kind of practice or kind of preparation for this midterm presentation. So you can take one of those topics and build on it, expand it. It should be something significant, not just Okay, chewing gum commercials use a lot of ad populum. Okay, that's not terribly interesting in itself. Yeah, so what if a particular chewing gum commercial uses an ad populum? Okay, why is that important? What's the social value of that? So one of the criteria in the grading is social value. Is this topic important? Does it have some value? So we'll talk about some more examples. So pick a particular issue, a particular trend, a pattern, a phenomenon that's interesting or important, and talk about it. There's got to be some reason why it's bad. It could be that this is kind of an expensive type of product, and therefore it encourages people to spend a lot of money unnecessarily on overpriced products with really false marketing. Or it somehow affects maybe public morals if these products are focusing too much on kind of snob appeal. Or some kind, obviously, if it's about sexism, racism, we talked about sexism in the last video. I talked about general ways that sexism in advertising is kind of harmful, but you need to be more specific. Okay, what is the particular harm or problem caused by these particular ads? So not just one advert, but these particular adverts. So what are the negative effects beyond what I've talked about? Why is it bad? Why is it negative? Why is it harmful in some way? You can talk about solutions if you want to. That's optional. You don't need to talk about solutions. That may be too much for this little presentation. But if you feel like, oh, something needs to be done about it, okay, sketch out. You don't have to go into a lot of detail, but sketch out one really specific solution. And it should be something, come up with your own unique idea. It shouldn't be, oh, something needs to be done about this. You know, if you want to sketch out, outline a solution, go ahead, but make sure it's specific. It's kind of a unique idea, not something obvious, not something that anyone could think of. But again, you don't have to do that. So, false claims or fallacies in advertising. You could look, for example, at adverts that are aimed at a particular sector of society. For example, or a particular market. So, for example, food adverts that may be food or drink adverts that maybe target parents. Something aimed at parents of children. Adverts for toys, and the adverts may be aimed at the kids directly or aimed at the parents. Maybe implying if you don't buy this product, you're a bad parent, you're a mean parent, you don't care about your kid or something like that. Kind of an example. Adverts that are directed at the health conscious, people who are conscious about their health. Adverts directed to old people, to younger people, to women, to teenagers, to children, different sectors of society, to minorities, to foreigners, perhaps. Particular products or markets, so advertisements for products in a particular market area, cosmetics, for example, particular food types of foods, healthy foods, foods that are supposedly healthy, or adverts for fast food or for what we call junk food. That would be like sugary snacks or sodas and stuff like that. Cars, computers, anything, a particular market. You can focus your talk on particular trends, like adverts for products, high status products like expensive cars, for example. Or you could focus on a particular trend like scare tactics. So a particular area of advertising that uses scare tactics. And again, in the US, I'm thinking of anti-drug commercials in the 1980s, scare tactics. I don't know if you have this in Korea. It's illegal in a lot of countries, but in my country, the US, we have what we call negative comparison advertising. I've never seen it in Korea. In Europe, it's generally illegal. So I'm hoping you don't have, it's not legal here also. If you are from a country, have lived in a country where you've seen negative comparison adverts, you could talk about that. So negative comparison is say, oh, this brand of water is really good, and the other brand of water, it's garbage, it's terrible. Or, like sodas, Coke and Pepsi, they've used negative comparison. Oh, Pepsi is really bad. People prefer to drink Coke, and it's much better. You compare your product with an actual product by another company, a competitor, and you make that one look bad. It's negative comparison. It happens in the U.S. A lot of things happen in the U.S. Other particular trends again, use of sex appeal in certain kinds of adverts. Certain kinds of adverts, not just in general, but focus on a particular type of advert. Could be like men's deodorant commercials, body wash commercials, cosmetic commercials, or something like that. Or going beyond fallacies and false claims, you could talk about maybe media portrayals, how a particular group, so along the lines of sexism and discrimination and such. You could look at mass media, a particular area of mass media, like maybe American dramas or Korean dramas, and how they portray certain groups of people or in recent years. Or maybe video games, it might be possible. How they portray women and gender roles. Again, this would be a particular area of advertising perhaps, or a particular area of media, particular types of TV shows or movies. How they portray gender roles, how they portray foreigners or other races, how they portray minority groups, how they portray people of the LGBT or LGBTQ community. So that means lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or sometimes they add the Q, and Q is kind of a general term for queer. When I was young, it was a slang term for just gay, but nowadays it's used by people in the LGBTQ communities for, I think, not only gay, lesbian, but also people who are maybe have another gender identity besides that, or people who are not sure and they're still figuring that out. Okay, and politics. In politics, if you want to deal with political examples, you can talk about rhetoric. So let's talk about the word rhetoric. The word rhetoric has two meanings we need to distinguish. The original academic meaning comes from ancient Greek and Latin scholars. In fact, the word is from Greek. You see funny spellings like RH, that's a Q, that the word is from Greek, by the way. Ancient Greek and Roman scholars talked about persuasive speaking and writing. How can you persuade an audience, particularly if you are a teacher, a philosopher, or if you're a senator in the Roman Senate, or if you're in the local city government in ancient Greece? How do you persuade people to vote for your thing? So they developed or described and analyzed different techniques for persuading people, including fallacies. So that's why some of the logical fallacies have Latin names. So rhetoric is, in the academic sense, the original academic sense of the word persuasive speaking or writing. So academic writing is rhetoric in that sense. It's persuasive writing, persuasive speaking. Some colleges in North America or Europe might have courses in rhetoric, persuasive writing, or persuasive speaking, public speaking, for example. Now the word today has taken on a second meaning, and that's a more negative meaning. Because, for example, in politics, politicians engage in a lot of persuasive speaking that is often misleading, false, or insincere. So we often use rhetoric in colloquial or conversational or informal English to describe talk or claims that are insincere or dishonest or misleading. That politician is full of rhetoric. He's just full of rhetoric. There's nothing, he's not honest at all. He doesn't mean what he's saying, he's just full of rhetoric. So rhetoric means dishonest or insincere persuasive speaking, like what a politician typically does. So for this assignment, you can critique a particular area of political rhetoric, one that involves fallacies or discriminatory speech, false claims or such. So if you choose this option, I don't want you to just talk about a particular political issue and your views on it. That's not what this is about. What I want you to do is talk about a particular area or type or pattern in political discourse, political conversation or rhetoric, and critique it. So for example, you can look at a particular race or campaign or election in your country, a particular politician or a particular group of politicians, a particular type of politicians, particular party, particular area of discourse, that is the arguments and speeches and attitudes of a particular group of politicians when they deal with a particular kind of issue. For example, particular issues like women's rights issues, for example, or national security issues, which can involve racism, or a particular particular target audience. So a particular group of politicians who usually are trying to target a particular type of audience. Trump famously said, I love the less educated people. Why? Because sadly the less educated people are those who believe him and vote for him. They're less likely to see his lies. By the way, Trump provides many examples. If you want to pick Trump, don't pick just the obvious examples, because there's so many obvious examples from Trump of racism or sexism or dishonesty. Pick something that maybe has not really been discussed as much. Not just one example, but multiple examples that show a particular pattern or trend, maybe something that hasn't been discussed about so much. But otherwise, so Trump is maybe too easy, so only if you have a really interesting angle, like here's something that people haven't really, here's some of the things he said that people haven't really talked about yet, or we have a really interesting, fresh insight, a unique insight. But otherwise, there are plenty of other politicians that you can talk about. So Trump is in a sense too easy unless you have a really interesting, unique angle or perspective on Trump. So if you have any questions, post them in the comments in the LMS, and I'll try to answer you. And as soon as I grade your last assignment, I will then announce a due date for the midterm, but there is information on the class website, again, what I've talked about regarding the topics and the grading criteria. So again, the grading criteria are on the website. That includes a particular kind of objective or thesis, good contents, good examples and details, support like explanation for what you're saying. It should be well organized, well thought out. You're speaking in vocal delivery. I would suggest, you don't have to dress in a formal suit, but not in your pajamas, because that affects your attitude when you're talking, how well you're dressed. If you're giving a formal presentation, I would recommend standing up. That just affects the way you talk and your attitude and your posture and your how your voice sounds. So I would recommend standing up and dress. You don't have to dress too formally, just dress like you would dress for a classroom presentation. So, don't rent a tuxedo or anything. You don't have to dress up really fancy. Just, if you wear a polo shirt or something that looks okay. Not your pajamas or such. Eye contact with the audience or the camera. The value, you should be talking about something that has some social value, some importance, some significance. And the effectiveness, is your talk informative? Is it persuasive? Do you have good points, good information? Those are the grading criteria. So that's it. I'll post a due date for the midterm hopefully in a few days, and go to the website and take a look there. So good luck on that, and I will see you, next time. For some of you, it will be later this week. For some of you, it will be next week because of the holidays. So I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.